Good afternoon, Ronto. This is Conrad Getz for Double Double Radio, transmitting out of Vault 416 today. I've finally taken advantage of the nice weather to make the trip here, and with the help of Lily and Jimmy, we're up and transmitting outside the Vault walls. At least, I hope we are. The frequency booster Hunter and I built is a bit haphazard, so I don't know how far we're actually reaching. Hopefully it's fine. With this broadcast coming from a vault, I figured I would talk a little less about the news from the regular Wasteland and maybe talk about vault life, and have a chat with Lily about how things have changed around here since I left. Of course, I did pick up some tidbits on the way here, so I might have more on those later, or for maybe an evening transmission. For now, I want to talk about the vault. So, as I'm sure I reported on a few times when talking about my time living here, Vault 416 was not finished, nor was it really intended as a proper vault through, Vault-Tec, before the bombs fell back in 2077. With Canada being in the political situation it was, any vaults being built up here were mostly for posterity and publicity rather than actual use in a doomsday event. Still, they did go through the motions of having reps sign people up and promise people that hope of a better future. I guess they figured that the actual likelihood of the end of the world was still far enough off that it wouldn't matter, and the vaults could just sit empty or be used for something else one day. Well, how wrong they were. Luckily for a lot of people in the region, there were still a lot of folks willing to fight for Canada to be independent again, and when things started looking dire, some of them took the opportunity to at least take hold of this vault and a handful of other bunkers and shelters around what used to be Ontario. Heck, a bunch of the people that took Vault 416, I think, were Vault-Tec North staff that had been told they would for sure get a chance to survive and saw the writing on the wall in time to turn things on their former bosses. So when that fateful day did come around, there were enough spots that a bunch of citizens were able to pull together and survive in their shelters, including my great-grandparents, who made it to Vault 416. Vault life was pretty normal, since there wasn't really any sort of weird stuff intended to happen in a vault that wasn't intended to be functional. People grew crops, and there was enough processed meats and things to really keep things going for a long time. From what I remember, I think there was enough in storage to last something like 200 years with a consistent and regulated population. Of course, that's since become a different situation, what with trade opening up and sharing some of the preserved stuff with wastelanders and caravans. I grew up, like a lot of others, with a decent education. Of course, with some artful textbook rewrites to correct what had been altered after the borders changed. Lucky that folks like my great-grandfather were around to make sure we all grew up learning history as it actually played out instead of the winner's version, my parents called it. We also learned a lot of practical skills, math, medical training, mechanical engineering, all that sorts of stuff. Anything to make the vault better or contribute to the betterment of society above ground. If I recall, after about 75 years, the overseer at the time got word from the surface that people were alive and roaming the wasteland, and particularly a bunch of military factions like the CPF, the NCR, the Brotherhood of Steel, that kind of thing. Luckily, out of all those, the CPF was the one to reach out to us here and arranged with the Overseer to help train us for military combat, provided we send dwellers to the surface to help in their fight. That was, unfortunately, when the draft started. You see, the Overseer at that time was very old-fashioned and believed that a draft of the trained members of the Vault would help provide for the surface, and in return, we would get supplies and the knowledge that we were doing our part to fight to take back Canada. So with that, he didn't want to leave things to a simple volunteer system. The draft was selective, taking about 25% of the trained citizens every other year, which doesn't seem as bad as some of us expected, but worse than a lot of us wanted. That is actually why I left in the first place. I was decently trained in firearms and medical care, enough to get by, but barely to be a soldier for a cause I didn't really understand at the time. What made me nervous was the fact that I had excelled in comms and technical maintenance, which would have almost certainly had me picked up for that year's selection. I took my leave of the vault, and today's the first time I've been back, thanks to Lily and the news that a bunch has changed in the years since then. So, without further ado, I'll get her in here, and let's have a chat with my old friend Lily Hill about how things have changed and what she's excited to learn about Ronto.
Well, hello there. Oh, sorry, hang on. Hello? Is that better, Conrad?
Yeah, sounds great. Hi there, Lily. It's been a while, hasn't it?
Yeah, give or take about 10 years since you left, Conrad.
Yeah, somewhere around there. After a while in the Wasteland, it does start to all blur together.
I hear you on that one. I mean, even here in the vault, the day in and the day out kind of turns a week into a month, and vice versa.
Yeah, I bet it does. So, anyways, Lily, now that I've got you on the air, why don't you tell the listeners out in Ronto and beyond a small bit about yourself and what life in the vault has been like since I left?
Oh, okay. Well, I'm Lily, and I was great friends with Conrad before he left to become this radio host up on the surface. We used to be a bit of a terror around the old vault, pulling pranks that got us on various chores duties.
Yeah.
But we also did a lot of the daily news check-ins and, radio-style stuff in the morning and everything, which is why I think he's added up here.
Among other reasons, but yeah, that's about it.
I mean, when you got a talent, but... Anywho, so after Conrad left the vault, there was a bit of a change in how people viewed the drafts. Like, there was always a bit of pushback, but when the voice that gave us the morning updates was no longer around because of them, that pushback got stronger, especially among some of the younger dwellers who wanted to effect some big changes, and, more and more folks just kept leaving, and the ones who stayed started putting together petitions and pushing to elect a new overseer to put those changes into effect. So, what was it, back in 2219? Chris McGregor, who had been at the top of a lot of those petitions going around, he was elected the new overseer, and his first act was making all military service above ground completely voluntary, no more drafts. Since then, it's been a lot more pleasant, and the training takes up less space in everyone's days, so crops have been better tended to, trade has increased with a bunch of new caravans, and more of us are feeling more comfortable with simply taking off the journey in the wasteland. So, to sum it up, your leaving ended up actually changing a lot of things around here, Conrad.
Oh, that's way too much credit. You made all those changes without me here, and honestly, I think it would have happened even if I had stayed.
Oh, you, always the modest one.
That may be true, but in this instance, I'm going to stand by it. I truly believe in the best of all of you here at 416. You've done something really, truly amazing and made the Vault into a proper, thriving community. I think that's pretty cool.
Well, thank you, but enough about us. What's been different up above since you've been wandering around? I mean, we want to hear all about it.
Well, that might be a bit of a longer story, but I'll tell you what. I'll give you the short version on air for now, and if you come and visit me up in Ronto at the station, I'll do the long version on air. How about that?
You know what? Deal, but you'd better follow through on that.
I will, I promise. Anyways, short version, really short version. I dealt with a lot of culture shock, did a lot of wandering, learning what's been going on, exploring a whole bunch of new places, met some, we'll say, interesting characters, almost died a whole bunch, eventually made my way back this way through a very long roundabout route. Met Hunter out in Old Schwa, which you'll be able to hear about on holotape very, very soon. And made our way back to Ronto, where we set up the station, and now here I am on the radio.
Okay, yeah, I'm definitely going to need a longer version of that. What stuff have you seen? What's changed? Why are the bottle caps money up here? I have so many questions that need answers.
And I will answer them, I swear. But for now, I gotta shut this down and have some dinner. I also need to talk with Overseer McGregor about some stuff. So let's handle that and then we'll talk, okay?
Well, all right. Let's get moving then.
Okay. Just let me sign off first. Well, Ronto and Vault 416, this has been Conrad Getz with Double Double Radio, broadcasting out of Vault 416. Stay safe out there.
Goodbye.
Double Double Radio, A Fallout Story, is a Voice in the Static production, written, starring, and produced by Edward Grimgrinner Hutchinson. You can find Double Double Radio on Instagram, Facebook, and other social media sites,
and there's a merch store through Etsy. Links are in the episode description. Double Double Radio is also made possible with the love and support of listeners and Wastelanders like you. If you want to help support the show on Patreon, that link will also be in the description alongside the list of monthly supporters. Thanks for listening.